Morning. It's good to see all of you online today. I'm Michael Kyer with the OUUC Tech Team. We're leading worship from several locations today. As service moves back and forth between us, if you put your screen on speaker view rather than gallery view, you'll be able to see whoever's speaking. And you can see us singing together if you go back to gallery view. We'll also be using the chat throughout service to post song lyrics and to share joys and sorrows. You can turn the chat off and on by clicking on the chat icon, so you might want to find that now. We can expect some tech glitches as we continue to do all we can to optimize our connections. We appreciate the grace as we all remember it's about connection and not perfection. One suggestion is that if you're having trouble with your reception, you might try to turn off your video and see if that helps. Last, I hope you'll find a candle or a chalice. In a moment, we can light them together. Thank you for your grace and your adaptability as we all learn together.
Good morning. Let's sing together from the sanctuary. We're going to start with Gather the Spirit, hymn number 347 in the gray hymnal, or you can find the lyrics in the chat. Gather the Spirit. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. The mystery of the hour, the trials by light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured by love and conscience refined, the body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit growing in mold, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Nice. Let's switch to the Till hymnal. Hymn number 1019, Everything Possible. We're just going to sing the chorus to this hymn today. Let me play it through one time to remind you. Give it a try. Oh, you can be anybody. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and you'll be the love you leave behind when you're done. Great to sing with you this morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation online worship service. The OUUC community comes together in the mutual promises and possibilities of our covenant. We commit to live out our mission to be a liberal religious community that opens minds, fills hearts, and transforms lives. We are so glad that you are here this morning. I'm the Reverend Mary Geer, and I am honored to serve as the minister for this community. Leading worship with me today is Sarah Lewis, our Director of Community and Faith Development, and Troy Fisher, our Music Director. We are so grateful for the many hands that made worship possible this morning. We give thanks for the tech team for providing technical support, and thanks to Darlene Sarkala, our administrator, for keeping us informed and connected. We welcome each of you to this celebration of love and wonder and to this congregation. After the service, we invite you to stay online for a virtual coffee hour. This is a chance to gather with a small group to say hello and check in. We'll offer more information about how to do that at the end of the service. I want to draw your attention to the printed order of service that is on the link where the worship service is, and it includes all of our announcements, which are also on the website. Just a couple things to mention. Tomorrow, those living alone are invited to a workshop on Zoom for Living Alone in the Pandemic at 7 p.m. You can find the registration and Zoom information on the OUUC website. Please plan to join us this Thursday at 7 p.m. for an evening of spiritual practice. This begins our regular offering of Thursday evening spiritual practices this year. And this Thursday, Troy Fisher and Reverend Carol McKinley join me for a time of reflection on our monthly theme of renewal, using words and music. You can find out more each week in the Wednesday email update and the Sunday announcements, and the login information is on the OUUC website. Please save the date for Sunday, September 13th. That morning, we'll gather to mark the end of summer and the start of our church year with an online water communion service. And that afternoon, plan on a road trip to OUUC. Between 3 and 4:30 p.m., you can stop by to donate books and school supplies, and you can receive chalice making kits, and we'll have religious education supplies for families. Look for more information in the Wednesday email update. Drive, bike, bus, walk. We hope to see you there. There are many opportunities to stay connected in our community because social distancing doesn't mean social isolation. Please check the website regularly, and if you have any questions or need help, please reach out to one of us and we're happy to help out. So I also want to take the opportunity this morning to introduce our new staff member, Joe Celine, who is our first OUUC media specialist. Joe brings a previous background in communications and writing. I'm pretty sure she's got community experience too, though. She brings all of those skills to this position, as well as a history of editing and marketing in a variety of fields. And just last week, Joe started a master's program at Washington State University in advanced audio and video software, graphic design tools, new media, and publication layouts. Joe is fiercely committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice in all of these activities. Joe officially starts, well, today. And so we'll plan some times for you to meet Joe and for Joe to meet you on Zoom. I want to offer my thanks to the interview panel for their participation in this process. Martha Guilfoyle, Michael Kyer, Darlene Sarkala, Troy Fisher, Marie Arnesmeyer, and Sarah Lewis. Welcome, Joe. We are so pleased to have you join us. Now, let us open our hearts and our minds as we prepare for worship. Welcome, everyone. It is so good to be together.
This morning and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. We light our chalices together today with these words from Elizabeth Harding. We Unitarian Universalists don't drink from our chalice. Instead, we use it to hold the flame. Oop. Yes, the flame is going to come to the chalice. One way or the other. The circle of the chalice helps keep the fire small. The flame doesn't blind us, it doesn't burn us. It gives us light so we can see all the different things in the universe, even the invisible ones. Because the Unitarian Universalist flame is a light of learning. The flaming chalice is a symbol of learning and love. It's our symbol, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And our opening words are offered by Rebecca Parker. Choose to bless the world. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting, any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question. What will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting, that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. But more, the choice will draw you into community. The endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. Come, let us worship together.
Let's sing together. My life flows on in endless song. It's hymn number 108 out of the Gray Hymnal, or you can find the words in the chat. My life flows on in endless song, above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn, that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me glows? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cells and dungeons vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
At this time last year, Reverend Mary and I offered a blessing of the backpacks as our children and youth prepared for school. Some grown-ups prepared to go to school too. This year is different, so different, and yet the same. Young people, and some grown-ups too, will begin to return to school this fall. Some have already started.
We draw on an ancient tradition of blessings offered at this time of year. On August 1st, some celebrate the festival Sabbat of Lammas, halfway between the summer solstice in June and the fall equinox in September. In the Celtic tradition, this holiday honors the god Lugh, the Sun King and god of light. This is the month of the first harvest, and so this festival often includes a blessing of the tools needed for the harvest. In the Catholic tradition, the upcoming national holiday of Labor Day is a time to bless the tools needed for our labor and to bless the laborers who use them.
And so today, we bless the tools needed as school begins. Not so much backpacks this year, but devices. Right now, our electronic devices are playing an even bigger role in keeping us connected. Last year, we blessed and distributed chalice charms for our children and youth to put on their backpacks so they could remember that they are loved and connected to the OUUC community. This year, we have chalice stickers to serve this purpose. Stickers for anyone who wants their device blessed. We'll distribute these at the September 13th drive-through event at OUC, or mail them if you wish. So take a minute now to gather your devices. Laptops, tablets, phones, cords, all the technology. We'll have just a minute of music so you can gather whatever devices you'd like blessed.
So let's settle in now, surrounded by our devices. Settle in wherever you are. Breathe in and breathe out. Notice what is supporting you: a chair, a couch, the floor, our blessed Mother Earth. Turn your attention outward to notice the connection to others across the room, across the street, across the World Wide Web, across the web of life. I invite you to place a hand on your devices as I offer this blessing. Spirit of life and of love, we are called to remember our connection to all that is, and to bring messages of love, justice, and peace into a world in need. We are grateful for new ways of listening to the voices of many others, attending to their interests and concerns, connecting and engaging with diverse people and groups. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow. May the devices that we use be blessed as we use them to be blessings to the world. May they never become distractions from relationships or cause harm when in our hands. May we remember that Sabbath is needed for rest and rejuvenation, including time away from devices. The connection always remains. May these chalice stickers carry the blessing of this community, and may they remind us that we are loved and we belong. With gratitude for the interdependent web of life and love, we offer and receive this blessing. Blessed be, and amen. We take a moment now to thank Reverend Carrie Kopnick. This is Reverend Carrie's last Sunday with us as our interim community life coordinator. Carrie, when you joined us, you were just Carrie. And we spent Sunday mornings in the sanctuary and the commons at OUUC. Oh my, how the world has changed. With your help, we pivoted to online worship and have created an amazing team of volunteers that help hold this sacred space every Sunday. Yay, tech team. And Reverend Carrie, you graduated from the Chaplaincy Institute in May and were ordained in June. You've experienced a lot of personal and family changes. We have learned and grown together. We are so grateful for your presence and guidance over these past 6 months. Thank you for journeying with us.
As a representative of the sewing ministry and the OUUC congregation, I sewed the stole we're giving to Reverend Carrie today. The stole is made from linen, cotton, and a few mystery fibers. The flowers are red and black on a white background. Red is the color of energy, vitality, and heat. White is the color of weddings and other joyful life events. Black is the color of sorrow. We hope you'll think of us, Reverend Carrie, as you wear this stole for weddings, memorial services, and other life events. You are in our hearts, Reverend Carrie.
Reverend Carrie, thank you for your service to our community and to our faith tradition. We look forward to the ministry that you will bring into the world, and will welcome you back to lead worship here again before too long. Reverend Carrie, as you go on this next part of our journey, know that you go with our love and our blessing. We came into community this morning bringing all that is in our lives. In this space, we draw on our journey together as a community of compassion to hold all that we bring here with us. We take the time now to share some of the joys and sorrows that have been offered. If you would like to send in a joy or sorrow this week, please look for the link in the online worship page on the website, and we'll bring it into the service next week. Right now, I invite us to take a breath together and let us open our hearts to receive all that is in our community today. We know that there are sorrows held in our community. Let us take a moment to broaden our awareness to include the wider world, to offer our care to those impacted by all that is happening. We extend our hearts to those impacted by the wildfires here in Washington State and in California, the people, the animals, the buildings, and the businesses. We extend our hearts to those impacted by Hurricane Laura, especially those who are reliving the horrific experience of Hurricane Katrina. We extend our hearts to the communities of color in Olympia, and around the nation as we grieve yet another shooting of a Black man. We send prayers to the family of the victims, to the officers involved and their colleagues, and to the communities who hold them. We extend our hearts to the victims of violence in Kenosha, Wisconsin, to those who hear the message that violence is the answer, and prayers to the community that holds them all. And we extend our hearts to all of us, for all of us are impacted by the novel coronavirus. We send love to those who are grieving. We send gratitude to those who are essential workers. And we send grace to each other. As we breathe together, in and out, let us turn our awareness back to this time and place. I invite you to enter your sorrows in the chat on your screen. We'll do joys in a moment. Let's hold all the sorrows first. As we take in what is posted, let us reach out our hearts in love and care to all those who share. I place a stone of sorrow in our community waters for all of the sorrows shared. And in the midst of all, we look for moments of joy, for they are there. A bit earlier, Beth Johnson posted that Lee Doyle's surgery went well, and Lee is back home and recovering. And we offer joy and healing thoughts for Lee. And I invite you to enter your joy in the chat. As we take in what is posted, let us reach out our hearts in celebration to all those who share. I place a stone in the water for all of the joys shared. And we place one more stone in the water, our water of community, for all of the joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts and that remain unspoken. I invite you now into a time of reflection, prayer, and meditation. Infinite web of life, spirit of love, great mysteries that surrounds us all. These days it feels like a lot. Sometimes it feels like too much, or sometimes not enough. And so we bring our awareness back here to this moment. We breathe in, we breathe out. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. We remember that we are part of the interconnected web of all that is. The World Wide Web, the web of compassion, the interconnected web of life. We breathe in, we breathe out. Breathe in peace, breathe out love. We remember that we are not alone. Even when we forget, we are never alone. We are part of this community of compassion. We breathe in, we breathe out. Breathe in peace, breathe out love. Let us hold a moment of silence together.
Let's sing together, Blessed Spirit of My Life. It's hymn number 86. Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with compassion. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done with me, let love be my legacy.
Our prayers and meditations deepen our gratitude for what we know as sacred in our lives and in this world. Each Sunday, we express our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. Today's offering will be shared between the Unitarian Universalist Association's Disaster Relief Fund and the OUUC Ministers Benevolence Fund. The UUA Disaster Relief Fund was founded in August of 2017 when Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana, followed just a few weeks later by Hurricane Irma in Florida. Now, 3 years later, there have been devastating storms in the Midwest, fires in California, and another Category 4 storm that hit Louisiana. This fund awards grants to UU congregations and individuals impacted by these kinds of disasters. Supporting this fund is one way we live out our covenant to each other as an association of congregations. The OUUC Ministers Benevolence Fund allows me to respond to requests for assistance from congregants and others in our community. These are unprecedented times when economic inequality is increasing even more as those without enough are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. Thank you for replenishing this fund so we can support our neighbors. Please note that you can participate in the offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your screen in just a moment. You can also mail a check to OUUC. May the offering now be generously given as it is gratefully received.
Thank you for your generous gifts. Our first reading today is from Teaching from the Heart, Theology and Educational Method by Mary Elizabeth Molino Moore. One dream is for the art of teaching to be practiced in such an organic way that people are connected with themselves, with one another, with social systems, with the earth, and with transcendent reality. The other dream is for the art of theology to be practiced in such an organic way that theological reflection touches and connects all dimensions of life. No metaphor is fully adequate in itself, but the metaphor of organism promises a connective vision of teaching and theology that calls attention to the reality of relationships. Thus, it encourages the nurture of healthy relationships and the disruption of sick, abusive, and oppressive relationships. The very word organic connotes the natural world in which everything is related to everything else. Human beings are part of that world. We exist in a web of relationships. Cultural symbols, social structures, the geography of the land, and close personal relationships all influence who we are. The word organic suggests various metaphors from the natural world, such as the metaphor of a body or an ecological system. These metaphors are very promising for education. They offer a much needed alternative to the mechanistic metaphors that have dominated in the last century, such as technological metaphors that give rise to stress on input-output and on goals and objectives.
Our second reading is offered by Bell Hooks from her writing, Teaching to Transgress, Education as the Practice of Freedom. Paulo Freire and Thich Nhat Hanh are two of the teachers who have touched me deeply in their work. When I first began college, Freire's thought gave me the support I needed to challenge the, quote, banking system of education. That approach to learning that is rooted in the notion that all students need to do is consume information fed to them by a professor and be able to memorize and store it. I entered the classrooms with a conviction that it was crucial for me and every other student to be an active participant, not a passive consumer. Freire's work affirmed that education can only be liberatory when everyone claims knowledge is a field in which we all labor. That notion of mutual labor was affirmed by Thich Nhat Hanh's philosophy of engaged Buddhism, the focus on practice in conjunction with contemplation. His philosophy was similar to Freire's emphasis on praxis, action and reflection upon the world in order to change it. This ends our readings.
It's back to school time, and this year will be a different one for sure. While virtual, distance, and home-based education will present new challenges, I dearly hope they also present new possibilities. I have seen the human capacity to learn and grow and have faith that most people learn no matter what their circumstances. Still, we owe each other the commitment to make sure that everyone learns. Everyone has the chance to reach their fullness. It's the same here at OUUC. As many of you have probably heard, we are launching a new model for engagement and faith development with OUUC, which we call Pathways. The pathways will be guides or maps to follow as we deepen our spirits, open our hearts and minds, and work to transform lives and care for the world. We plan on 7 pathways, so there will be many opportunities to learn and grow. Each individual is free to wind through pathways on their own unique journey, but we are also a learning community, all on these paths together. The idea of many paths is not unique to OUUC or to Unitarian Universalism, of course. The metaphor of many paths, same destination, is found prominently in Sanatana Dharma, also called Hinduism. For thousands of years, the practices of yoga have had four main paths: the physical path that we think of as yoga in America, and then jnana, bhakti, and karma yogas. Jnana yoga is the path of the intellect, of study, of contemplation, and of intellectual understanding of the nature of reality. Bhakti yoga is the path of devotion, ritual, and a heartfelt personal relationship with the divine. And karma yoga is the path of action and service in the world. So we could think of this as head, heart, and hands. Now, it's acknowledged that there are multiple paths, but that doesn't mean that the folks following a path equally respect all the other paths. I've been told that the practitioners of jnana yoga often look down on the practitioners of bhakti yoga as being too emotional. The karma yoga practitioners may look at the others as being too self-centered, and the bhakti yoga practitioners may look down on the others as lacking real heart. This may sound familiar to us. Sometimes we UUs also may assert the superiority of our preferred way of practice, whether it is study and intellect, embodied heart practices, or social justice work. We too have many paths, but still may lack understanding between the practitioners of each. In the early 20th century, Indian philosopher and yogi Sri Aurobindo began teaching what he called integral yoga, the path of integrating all the yogic paths into an integrated spiritual practice. Yes, seek intellectual understanding, and also emotional connection, and also action and service in the world. Each path informs the others, creating greater growth and transformation in individuals and bringing the gifts of those individuals to making the world closer to the divine ideal. Basically, although a person may be stronger in either head, heart, or hands, we all have capacities in all of them. An integrated path, not a single path. A description, not a prescription. Unitarian Universalism comes from at least two religious paths, that of the Unitarians and that of the Universalists. Those two paths had much in common, but were also unique from one another. When I was a young UU, I was told that Unitarianism could be summed up as reason, truth, and freedom, while Universalism could be summed up as faith, hope, and love. Another, rather more sarcastic summation was offered by Thomas Appleton when he said, "The Universalists think that God is too good to damn them forever. The Unitarians think that they are too good to be damned forever." Although it was sarcastic, there is a kernel of truth in there. The Unitarians were more focused on human nature than on divine nature. Many of the early American Unitarians emphasized self-culture, which was study and effort to develop the self. The use of reason and the strong value on individual freedom of conscience made Unitarianism a path that prized learning and encouraged all to study and refine their reason. Meanwhile, the Universalists were more focused on the nature of the divine, which they perceived as an all-loving God. Humanity would be lifted by feeling that love and treating one another accordingly. All would be reunited with the divine after death, so what was left to do was to make life now an embodied expression of that same divine love. This made Universalism a path of service and justice and emotional trust. While the two denominations consolidated in 1961, there is still a bit of a divide between those two paths. We still have not fully integrated our UU paths, seeing them as supportive and dynamic ways to developing and practicing. And yet there are calls to do so, particularly among those working to bring more universalism into our practice. At General Assembly this year, I heard the inspiring John Murray Distinguished Lecture titled "Individual Salvation, Collective Liberation" by Reverend Schuyler Vogel. Reverend Vogel described the work as twofold, with a commitment to personal lifelong learning, always being open to changing your understanding as you learn more and hear from others' perspectives, and then outward focused as we work toward collective liberation. As Universalists, we know that no one is saved unless all are saved. No one is free unless all are free. Our liberation is, and always has been, collective. This twofold work is an integration of Unitarian Universalist practice. We are dedicated to lifelong learning, to that self-culture that the Unitarians prized, and we ever seek to improve ourselves and deepen in spirit and broaden in understanding. And we are also dedicated to a universally shared love, with everyone free and whole, everyone worthy and dignified, a collective liberation, a beloved community. The paths are integrated, mutually supporting one another. This is my earnest wish for Pathways. In keeping with our Unitarian heritage, we will of course continue our offerings for personal development. And this is no easy path, for it offers no easy answers. We have no orthodoxy, so each must do the work to know their own truth through conscience, mind, and heart. We also have no orthopraxy, no prescribed rituals or behaviors. The closest we come to is lighting a chalice. Each of us must find the practices that will sustain and deepen our grounding in spirit. We have available many tools in our spiritual toolboxes, but there is no one spiritual practice of Unitarian Universalism. So our pathways will give us each individual opportunities to explore theology and cosmology, ethics, right relationship, and more, as well as opportunities to engage with many different spiritual practices and faithful actions in the world. These are paths of lifelong learning. And then, in keeping with our Universalist tradition, these paths will also be paths toward ever greater collective liberation. We UUs have always been active in social and environmental justice, but we know that the arc is long and we are only just bending it. This is the work of not just one lifetime, but of many. All of us need all of us, and none of us is free until all of us are. In the context of education, this means that the question is not just how to teach these facts to these kids or adults, but how to be a force of love in their lives, especially when the world around us feels overwhelming and off kilter. Education is not just for the head, but for the whole person and for the collective that we form together. So that is the why of a program that seeks to integrate our education efforts with our justice efforts, with our community building. What of the how? This turns us to questions of pedagogy, which is the theory and methods of teaching. Our methods must match our intention. As an educator, and especially as a religious educator, I am standing on the shoulders of many educators that came before. And today, I'm going to limit myself to only talking about 4 of them. Brazilian educator Paulo Freire challenged the models of education which used what he described as the banking system of depositing knowledge from instructors into students, like depositing money in the bank. This investment model expects returns as students become productive members of society and conform to the interests of the people who designed the education they received. According to Freire, the oppressed already had a great deal of wisdom and needed an educational system that empowered rather than one that disempowered. He wrote in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, education either functions as an instrument which is used to facilitate integration of the younger generation into the logic of the present system and bring about conformity, or it becomes the practice of freedom, the means by which people deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. How do our educational models perpetuate models of conformity and dominance? For instance, by replicating white supremacy culture. And how do our models empower? In the US, Bell Hooks, who we heard from in our second reading today, brought a feminist and African-American perspective to Freire's work. She asked critical questions like, how do we deal with teachers who don't really want to teach? With students who don't want to learn? With racism, classism, and sexism in the classrooms? Her answers echoed Freire's. Education not to enforce conformity and transmit a canon of accepted and acceptable knowledge and ideas, but instead education that led ever to greater freedom, to greater liberation. Hooks feels that the key is engagement, dynamically between teachers and learners. The classroom is always changing because there are new people present. This is a dynamic conversation, not a one-way transmittal of ideas and knowledge. And that reminds me of another, more current thinker who just also happens not to capitalize her name, Adrienne Marie Brown, who writes in Emergent Theory that there is a conversation that only these people in this room right now can have, and that is the most important conversation to facilitate happening. When we gather together in our learning community, what is the one conversation that we can have at this time, in this place, and with these people? Parker Palmer, Quaker, teacher, and author, clearly drew from Bell Hooks' work, although sadly he did not directly acknowledge and give attribution to her. But Palmer's perspective is different, so I lift it up here today. Rather than freedom and liberation, he emphasizes that the journey of education is toward wholeness. Quote, our deepest calling is to grow into our own authentic selfhood, whether or not it conforms to some image of who we ought to be. As we do so, we will not only find the joy that every human being seeks, we will also find our path of authentic service in the world. This idea of wholeness does not equal perfection, and so here we break away a bit from the Unitarian notion of self-culture. No one will ever be perfect. We will not ever be perfect, but we can be whole, and wholeness comes from accepting and working with our own brokenness and our own authentic being. This is deep heart work. How do our practices lead toward greater wholeness? How do we accept and integrate brokenness and authentic selfhood? This brings me to the fourth educational thinker I am drawing upon as I think of what pathways can be for us. Thomas Groome, a Catholic educator who has talked about a religious education model of praxis. His model of religious education is deeply engaged with being, not just knowing. Groome's model emphasizes that the subjects taught are people, not concepts. He writes about informing, forming, and transforming people, a model that well matches our mission to open minds, fill hearts, and transform lives. In this model of praxis, learning is placed in a cycle with being and doing. It is a dynamic process of inward thinking, outward dialogue, study and contemplation, and action. This process, that of praxis, is a never-ending spiral. Learning, dialogue, story, dialogue, action, reflection, which brings you back to learning, a spiral dance of lifelong learning. How do we connect our learning, dialogue, action, and reflection? What is the spiral dance of our learning? These educators all remind us that there is no one single goal or objective of education other than to support, love, and inspire growth in others. With that in mind, I would love for all of us who are feeling anxious right now about distance learning and schooling to take a deep breath and send our love to all the teachers prepping online lesson plans, to all the students getting their spaces at home set up to support their learning, and to all the parents and caregivers who are rearranging their lives to be a support to learning. You are all part of this collective of love and learning. And now let's return to the questions that I've been asking about our congregation. How do we see our spiritual paths becoming integrated? How can Unitarian Universalism be practiced in an integrated way? How can these pathways guide our spiritual journeys? How do our educational models perpetuate models of conformity and dominance? How can they empower and inspire change? What is the conversation we need to have with one another? How do we move toward wholeness for all? How do we integrate learning, knowing, dialogue, action, and reflection? And how do we develop as individuals and as a world community? I believe that we can practice integrated spirituality, integrated Unitarian Universalism, and integrated praxis. We can both attend to our personal growth and work for collective liberation. In fact, I believe that we cannot really do the one without the other, for they are intricately linked. OUUC has always been a community that learns, acts, and supports one another. But in a new world with new challenges and lots of noise, this model may bring us some clarity and focus. Please join me on these pathways. You can find out more on the OUC website. The path may not be easy. In fact, this year especially, it may be full of challenges. But as the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This is a long journey. We will go far. Let us go together.
Let's sing together our closing hymn. Hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. We'll just sing the first verse. We'll build a broken free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like water, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
We extinguish our chalices with these words from Amy Zucker Morgenstern. In every person we meet, especially those who cause us discomfort, we find an opportunity for us to grow, to learn, and to go further along the path of transformation that is our purpose in life. Every single one is our teacher. May the next week bring you many such moments of meeting that help you become the person you want to be, and may you welcome them with joy.
Let's sing together our unison benediction, Just Believe. Just believe your star will rise in the night. The moon smiles on you. Know the sun will bring the And in your heart, know that